I sold my business for $60 million and decided to celebrate with my daughter and her husband. We went to the most expensive restaurant in town, the kind of place where the menu has no prices and the sommelier looks like he earns more than a surgeon. Madison picked it, naturally. Everything had to be the best, the most exclusive, the most Instagram-worthy. We settled into a corner booth with views of the city skyline, all glass and chrome and soft amber lighting. Evelyn, my wife, sat beside me, quietly elegant in navy blue. Madison glowed across the table in something designer and fitted, her phone already face down beside her plate, a rare concession to family time. Logan, her husband, ordered the second most expensive wine without asking anyone else what they wanted. "To Dad," Madison said, raising her glass, the self-made man who finally cashed out. "To family," I added, because it seemed like the thing to say. Logan's smile was all teeth, no warmth. He'd been pitching me investment opportunities since the sale closed. Crypto schemes, real estate flips, something involving artisanal spirits that made no financial sense. I'd deflected each one with vague promises to look at the numbers. The appetizers arrived. Evelyn and I shared glances over microscopic portions of deconstructed everything. Madison photographed her plate from 3 angles before touching it. Logan knocked back wine like it was beer at a tailgate. My phone buzzed. A text from my former CFO about final paperwork signatures. I excused myself, stepped into the corridor near the restrooms where the signal was better, and took the call standing beside a massive flower arrangement that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I was 3 minutes into logistics when a waiter appeared at my elbow. Young guy, early 20s, with nervous eyes and the kind of posture that said he needed this job. "Sir," he said quietly, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but it seems your daughter has poured something into your glass. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation?" The words hit strange. Not the content, the delivery. Flat. Factual. He wasn't speculating. "Into my glass?" I repeated. "Yes, sir. While you stepped away, I saw it from the service station. She took something from her purse. Small vial. Very quick." The corridor felt colder. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you seem like a decent person, sir. And because I have a daughter, too." I ended the call mid-sentence, pocketed the phone, and walked back to the table with a smile I didn't feel. Madison was mid-story about some charity gala. Logan's attention was fixed on his phone, thumbs moving. My glass sat exactly where I'd left it, amber liquid catching the light. I let Madison finish her sentence, laughed at whatever the punchline was supposed to be, and reached for my water. As I did, I shifted the wine glass 6 inches to the left, into the neutral zone between my place setting and Logan's. "Actually," I said, smooth as silk, "I think I grabbed yours by mistake, Logan. This one's fuller." I slid his glass in front of me, picked up what had been mine, and placed it squarely in front of him. Logan glanced at it, shrugged, didn't even pause his scrolling. Madison's eyes tracked the movement, but her smile never wavered. "Cheers," I said, and took a sip from the glass I'd just claimed. 15 minutes later, Logan's face went gray. It started with a hand to his stomach, then a sharp breath through his teeth. Madison's hand found his arm. "Babe, you okay?" Logan tried to stand, wobbled, gripped the edge of the table hard enough that the silverware rattled. His breathing turned shallow and fast. Sweat beaded on his forehead, catching the light like dew. "Logan?" Madison's voice pitched higher, tight with something that might have been fear if I didn't know better. He made a sound, half grunt, half gasp, and went down sideways, catching the chair on the way. His head missed the corner of the table by inches. Controlled chaos erupted, waiters converging, manager on a phone, someone shouting for a doctor. I stayed seated. Evelyn's hand found mine under the table, A quick 3-pulse squeeze. Wait, watch, say nothing. Madison dropped to her knees beside Logan, all performance and perfectly timed trembling hands. But her shock was a beat too smooth, her reaction just slightly rehearsed. I'd watched her audition for school plays at 14. I knew the difference. I said nothing. I kept my face blank and my thoughts racing. The EMTs arrived in 8 minutes. They asked questions. I answered calmly. What he ate, what he drank, any known allergies. No, I didn't see him take anything unusual. No, he hadn't complained of feeling ill before dinner. Logan was conscious but incoherent, strapped to a gurney, wheeled out through the main dining room, while 200 eyes tracked the spectacle. Madison climbed into the ambulance with him, phone pressed to her ear, already calling someone. Evelyn and I stayed behind to settle the bill and answer a few more questions from the manager, a thin man with silver temples who spoke in the careful monotone of someone trying very hard not to imply anything. In the car, Evelyn stared straight ahead through the windshield. You switched them. I did. Did you know? A waiter told me, said he saw her pour something. She processed that in silence for 3 blocks. Then, her body language when he collapsed. She wasn't surprised. No, I agreed. She wasn't. My phone rang twice that night, both times from Madison. I let them go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. The hospital called at 6 in the morning. Logan had stabilized overnight. They'd pumped his stomach and run a full tox screen. Results were pending, but preliminary indicators suggested acute gastric distress possibly linked to chemical irritant. Chemical irritant was a polite way of saying poison. I thanked the nurse, ended the call, and found Evelyn already awake in the kitchen, brewing coffee and scanning something on her tablet. She looked up when I entered. He's stable, I said. Good. No relief in her voice, just acknowledgement of a data point. I poured coffee, black, and sat across from her. The house was too quiet. We'd built it for noise, kids running through halls, friends over for dinner, life happening in every room. Now it felt like a museum. Madison called you last night, Evelyn said. Twice. I know. She didn't call me. That detail mattered. Madison always played us as a unit when she wanted something, separate when she needed to exploit a crack. Going solo to me meant she was testing for weakness. She'll call again, I said. She did. 3 more times before noon. I didn't answer. On the 4th attempt, she left a voicemail, breathless, shaky, words tumbling over each other about Logan being okay and tests being done and how scared she'd been, and could I please call her back because she really needed to hear my voice. Performance, all of it. Evelyn listened to it on speaker, her face unreadable. When it ended, she set the phone down and met my eyes. What do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What I wanted was understanding. What I wanted was for my daughter to not have tried to eliminate me at a celebration dinner. What I wanted was a world where I didn't have to decide whether to protect myself from my own child. What I got was reality. I need to see the paper trail, I said. Everything I've signed, everything I've guaranteed, every gift I've made. If she's desperate enough to try this, there's a reason. Evelyn nodded. I'll pull the files. We spent the afternoon in my home office, spreading documents across the desk like battle maps. Decades of financial entanglement stared back at us. Co-signed loans, gift letters for down payments, beneficiary designations on accounts I'd forgotten existed, informal guarantees for Logan's business ventures that had seemed harmless at the time. I'd been generous, stupidly, carelessly generous. Here, Evelyn tapped a folder. Insurance policy, life, 20 million. Beneficiary was you, then Evelyn, then Madison and Tyler equally. Was? Amendment dated 4 months ago. Madison as primary, Logan as secondary. Your signature. I stared at it. The signature looked right. Same loops, same pressure, but I had no memory of signing it. I never signed this. No, Evelyn agreed quietly. But proving that's difficult. The notary stamp is real. The witness is some paralegal at a firm Logan probably paid. You'd need a handwriting expert, forensic analysis, weeks or months of litigation. Which is expensive and public. Exactly. I leaned back, letting the implications settle. They'd been planning this. Not an impulse, not a desperate last-minute gamble. Methodical. Patient. They'd positioned themselves to benefit from my elimination and covered their tracks just well enough to survive casual scrutiny. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Need to talk. Not Madison, restaurant manager, have info. I showed Evelyn. She read it twice, then nodded. We met him at a coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of us frequented. He arrived 10 minutes late, nervous, glancing over his shoulder like someone in a bad thriller. His name was Peter. He'd been managing high-end establishments for 15 years and had the kind of discretion that came from watching rich people behave badly and keeping his mouth shut. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, stirring sugar into coffee he didn't drink. "I probably shouldn't be here." "But you are," I said. He exhaled slowly. We reviewed the internal footage after the incident. Not the dining room. We don't film guests, privacy policy, but the service areas, the corridors. Your daughter was visible on 2 cameras when you stepped away. She reached into her purse, removed a small container, and emptied it into your glass. Clear liquid. Very fast. Professional. Professional. That word landed heavy. "Can you share that footage?" Evelyn asked. Peter shook his head. "Company policy. We delete after 30 days unless there's a legal hold or police request. No police report means no hold. And honestly, the angle doesn't show enough detail to hold up in court. You'd see the motion, but not the specific action. A good lawyer would shred it." "So why tell me?" I asked. "Because you have a right to know. And because I've seen this pattern before. Not the poisoning, but the setup. Wealthy families, sudden health emergencies, convenient paperwork. It never ends well for the person being targeted." I believed him. He had nothing to gain from lying and everything to lose if I turned hostile. "Thank you," I said. Genuinely. He stood, nodded once, and left without finishing his coffee. Back in the car, Evelyn stared out the window. "Not enough for court." "No," I agreed, "but enough for the trust." She turned, eyebrow raised. "Irrevocable trust," I said. "Bad actor clause. Forfeiture language. If a beneficiary attempts fraud, undue influence, or harm against the grantor, they're disinherited. Completely. You'd need proof. I have a witness. I have circumstantial evidence. I have a forged signature on an insurance document, and I have a daughter who doesn't know I know." Evelyn smiled. It wasn't warm. Madison finally cornered me 3 days later. She arrived unannounced at noon, driving her white Range Rover with the vanity plates, wearing athleisure that cost more than most people's cars. I watched her through the window as she checked her reflection in the side mirror before approaching the door. I let her ring twice before answering. "Dad." Her voice cracked on the word, eyes already wet. "I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy. Logan's better. They released him yesterday. The doctors think it was some kind of reaction to shellfish, even though he's never been allergic before. Isn't that strange?" "Very strange," I agreed, not moving from the doorway. She shifted weight, glanced past me into the house. "Can I come in?" "Evelyn's resting. Maybe another time." The mask slipped, just a flash, gone in a heartbeat. But I saw it. Anger. Calculation. Then back to distress. "Dad, what's wrong? Did I do something?" I almost admired the performance. Almost. "Nothing's wrong, Madison. I'm glad Logan's feeling better. Give him my regards." I closed the door before she could respond, locked it, and watched through the sidelight as she stood frozen on the porch. She pulled out her phone, typed furiously, then stormed back to her car. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Tyler, my son. Madison says you're acting weird. Everything okay? I replied, Fine, talk later. Evelyn appeared beside me, arms crossed. She knows you know. Maybe, or she's worried I'm starting to suspect. Either way, they'll escalate. She was right. Cornered animals got desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. I called Evans. Evans had been my head of security at the logistics company for 12 years before retiring when I sold. He was 56, built like a fire hydrant, and had the kind of calm competence that came from 2 decades in executive protection. He'd driven me through bad neighborhoods at midnight, stood between me and angry union reps, and never once asked questions he didn't need answered. I needed him now. He arrived an hour later in a black SUV with tinted windows, parked in the driveway like he owned it, and walked in without knocking. Fred, Evelyn, he nodded to each of us. What's the situation? I laid it out. The dinner, the switch, the insurance fraud, the certainty that they'd tried to remove me as an obstacle. Evans listened without interrupting, his expression flat and professional. When I finished, he asked one question. What do you need? Information on Logan, financial position, creditors, anyone he owes. I need to know how desperate he is. You think desperation drove this? I think desperation and opportunity made a dangerous combination. Evans pulled out a tablet and started typing. I'll have preliminary data in 48 hours. Deep dive takes a week. Start with preliminary. And Evans? He looked up. If they come here, to the house, I need to know immediately. Cameras are already staged in the truck. I'll have eyes on your perimeter by tonight. He left as quietly as he'd arrived. Evelyn watched him go, then turned to me. You're building a case. I'm building a wall, I corrected. And when they try to climb it, they'll find nothing but air on the other side. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the dinner, the moment I'd switched the glasses, the look on Logan's face as whatever Madison had poured hit his system, the smoothness of her performance. She was my daughter. I'd taught her to ride a bike, helped with college applications, walked her down the aisle at her wedding, and she'd tried to end me over money. Evelyn stirred beside me. You're thinking too loud. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready. I am. No, she said, rolling over to face me in the darkness. You're still thinking like a father. You need to think like someone under attack. She was right. That was the shift I hadn't fully made yet, the transition from seeing Madison as my child to seeing her as an adversary. It felt like tearing something essential out of myself, but Evelyn's words had the weight of truth. Help me, I said. Already am. The next morning, Evans sent his preliminary report. I read it twice over coffee, feeling the temperature of the situation drop with every paragraph. Logan was drowning. He'd burned through 3 venture capital raises in 2 years, all on projects that either collapsed or never launched. He owed money to private lenders who didn't bother with lawyers, the kind who collected in person and didn't itemize expenses. His most recent investment opportunity was leveraged 5-to-1 against assets he didn't actually own, backed by personal guarantees from people who were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Madison's lifestyle costs were detailed in spreadsheets: designer wardrobes, club memberships, a leased Maserati, private trainers, the kind of spending that looked like wealth but was actually just debt with good lighting. They were 6 months from total collapse, and I was the only parachute in sight. Evelyn read over my shoulder. How much of this is guaranteed by you? About $4 million, directly or indirectly. So if you were gone, insurance payout covers the debts, Madison inherits the rest, and they walk away clean. Motive, Evelyn said simply. Motive, I agreed. I spent the rest of the morning on the phone with Nadia Price, my trusts and estate's attorney. She was in her mid-40s, sharp as broken glass, and had built a reputation on constructing legal structures that held up under assault. I'd worked with her for years on estate planning, but this was different. This was war architecture. Irrevocable trust with bad actor forfeiture language, I said. Can you draft it? Of course. What's the trigger? Attempted fraud, undue influence, or harm against the grantor. If triggered, total disinheritance. No appeals, no second chances. Silence on the line. Then, this is Madison. Yes. Fred, you understand that language this aggressive will invite challenge. She'll argue overreach, undue influence against you, mental competency. Let her argue. Can you make it hold? Another pause. Yes, if you're certain. I am. Then I'll need witness statements, documentation of the triggering events, and a clear record of your mental state and decision-making capacity. This can't look like retaliation. It has to look like prudent estate planning. How long? 72 hours for the draft. Another week to execute properly. Do it. I hung up and stared at the phone, feeling the weight of what I'd just set in motion. I was severing my daughter from my legacy, cutting her off from the wealth she'd been counting on. It felt surgical, cold, necessary. Evelyn touched my shoulder. You're doing the right thing. Am I? She tried to end you, Fred. Over money. That's not a daughter. That's a predator who happens to share your DNA. The words hurt because they were true. They came for me at midnight on a Tuesday. I was in the living room reading under a single lamp when Evans's text hit my phone. 2 figures at your gate, male and female, one trying the keypad. I set down the book, calm as glass, and walked to the security panel. The cameras showed Madison's Range Rover parked askew across the driveway approach, driver's door open. Logan stood at the gate keypad, fingers jabbing buttons in sequence, trying codes, failing, trying again. Madison paced behind him, phone glowing in her hand. I should have felt fear. Instead, I felt clarity. I armed the system, locked the doors from the panel, and texted Evans. Let them try. Stay close. Logan gave up on the keypad and started climbing. He got one leg over before the motion sensors triggered lights bright enough to film surgery. He froze, shielding his eyes, then dropped back to the ground. Madison was shouting something I couldn't hear through the glass. Logan walked directly to the front door and started pounding. I opened it, not wide, just enough to see his face. Sweat, rage, and something else. Desperation, maybe, or the particular madness of someone watching their entire structure collapse. We need to talk, Logan said. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. It's midnight. I don't care what time it is. You've been dodging Madison for a week. Whatever you think happened. I know what happened. That stopped him. He blinked, recalculated. Behind him, Madison had gone still. I don't know what you're talking about, Logan said, trying for confused and landing somewhere near guilty. The restaurant, the glass, the vial, the insurance policy with my forged signature. His face did something complicated. Surprise, then anger, then back to false confusion, all in 3 seconds. That's insane. Madison would never. She did, and you helped her plan it. He stepped forward. I didn't move. You're making a serious accusation, Fred. I'm stating facts. You have no proof. I have enough. He shoved the door. I held it, felt the force transfer through my arm into my shoulder. He was bigger than me, younger, angrier, but anger made people sloppy. He shoved again, harder. The door swung inward. I let it, stepping back, and he followed through into my entryway like I'd known he would. His hand closed around my wrist, tight, threatening, meant to intimidate. I'd taken enough self-defense training over the years to know what came next. I turned my wrist inward against his thumb, the weakest point of any grip, and stepped through. His hold broke. He stumbled. A small table near the door caught his hip. A vase tipped, hit the tile, shattered. Crystal and water spread across the floor like evidence. Evans appeared in the doorway behind him, Not threatening, just present, solid, immovable. Logan saw him, processed the shift in odds, and backed toward the door. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's not." Madison was crying on the porch. Real tears this time, I thought, but maybe still performance. Hard to tell anymore. Logan grabbed her arm and pulled her back toward the car. They were gone in 30 seconds, taillights disappearing down the drive. I locked the door. Evans checked the frame, the glass, made sure nothing was actually damaged beyond the vase. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine." "He's escalating." "Good. Desperate people make mistakes." Evans nodded and left to reset the perimeter. Evelyn came downstairs in a robe, hair loose around her shoulders. "I heard shouting," she said. "They tried the gate. Logan forced his way in. It's done now." She stepped over the broken crystal and wrapped her arms around me. We stood like that for a long time, in the wreckage of a vase I'd owned for 20 years, while I tried to remember what my daughter had looked like when she was 5 years old and still thought I was a hero. The memory wouldn't come. The next morning, I called Nadia. "Accelerate the timeline. I need the trust restructure executed by Friday." "Fred, rushing this. I'm not asking. They came to my house last night. They're out of runway and out of options. If I wait, they'll try something worse." Silence. Then, "I'll have the documents ready by Thursday." "Thank you." I hung up and pulled out a folder Evans had delivered that morning. Logan's guarantees, the ones I'd co-signed years ago when he was launching his first venture, back when I still thought he might be more than a charming predator with a good haircut. Legally enforceable, due on demand, backed by assets that no longer existed. I started making calls. The first was to Logan's primary lender, a regional bank that specialized in high-risk commercial loans. I explained that I was reviewing my guarantee obligations and wanted to confirm current status and exposure. The loan officer was happy to help. Logan's line of credit was maxed at $2 million. Interest payments were 60 days in arrears, and collateral had been quietly liquidated without notification. "Would you like to cure the default, Mr. Lamb?" "No," I said. "I'd like to exercise my right to call the guarantee." Pause. "That would trigger immediate repayment of the full principal." "I understand. Mr. Wright would have 72 hours to cure or we'd initiate collection." "Understood. Proceed." I made 4 more calls that morning. Each one tightened the noose. By noon, Logan had default notices from 3 lenders and a payment demand from a 4th. His line of credit was frozen. His operating accounts were flagged for review. Evelyn brought me lunch and sat across from me while I ate. "You're cutting off his air supply?" "Yes. He'll lash out." "I'm counting on it." She studied me for a long moment. "You've changed." "Have I? The Fred I married would have tried to fix this. Mediation, family therapy, finding middle ground. That Fred raised a daughter who tried to poison him." "Fair point." The call came at 3 p.m. Madison sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Dad, please, you have to stop this. Logan's creditors are calling. They're saying you triggered the guarantees. They're going to take everything. Please, Dad, I'm begging you." "You poured something in my glass, Madison." The sobbing stopped. Pure silence on the line, the kind that has texture. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The restaurant, the vial, the insurance policy you forged. I know everything." "Dad." "You tried to eliminate me. Over money. Your own father. That's not, I would never." "Goodbye, Madison." I ended the call, blocked her number, and handed the phone to Evelyn. "Is this what you want?" she asked quietly. I thought about that. What I wanted was a daughter who loved me more than money. What I had was a daughter who'd calculated my net worth against her inheritance timeline and decided I was worth more gone. "It's what's necessary," I said. That was the moment I felt it fully, the shift Evelyn had mentioned. I wasn't a father anymore, not in the way that mattered. I was a target who'd learned to shoot back, and I was just getting started. Nadia's office was downtown, 20th floor, all glass and steel, and the particular silence of expensive legal work. I sat across from her at a conference table large enough to seat 12, documents spread between us like a map of controlled demolition. Irrevocable trust, she said, tapping the first folder. All assets currently titled in your name or held in revocable structures transfer here. You maintain control during your lifetime through a limited power of appointment, but the beneficial ownership shifts permanently. And Madison? Named as a contingent beneficiary, subject to the forfeiture clause we discussed. If triggered, her interest terminates completely and redistributes to alternate beneficiaries. Tyler? Listed as a secondary beneficiary with similar protective language, though less aggressive, he hasn't demonstrated the same concerning behavior. Not yet, anyway. Tyler had stayed quiet, but silence wasn't innocence. He'd been in Madison's orbit too long to be completely clean. Evelyn sat beside me, reading through the trust language with the focus she brought to anything involving structure and consequences. She'd caught 3 ambiguities in the first draft that Nadia had tightened. This version was airtight. The bad actor clause, I said. Talk me through the trigger. Nadia flipped to a tagged section. Attempted fraud against the grantor, proven undue influence, forged documents, or actions demonstrably intended to harm the grantor physically or financially. The determination is made by an independent trustee, not you, not family, based on clear and convincing evidence. Who's the trustee? I've identified 3 candidates. All are professional fiduciaries with forensic accounting backgrounds. They won't be swayed by emotion or family pressure. Good. What about the insurance policy? That goes into the trust as well, with beneficiary designations updated to match the trust structure. Madison's forged amendment becomes void. Any payout flows according to the trust terms, not her fraudulent claim. I signed where Nadia indicated. Evelyn witnessed. A notary appeared from an adjacent office, verified identities, applied her stamp. The documents were scanned, filed electronically, and secured in multiple locations. This is active immediately, Nadia explained. As of now, Madison's claim to your estate depends on conditions and can be cancelled. If something happened to you tomorrow, she wouldn't get a cent unless the forfeiture clause hasn't been triggered. And if we trigger it? Then she's disinherited permanently. No appeals, no probate challenges that will succeed. I've structured this to survive even aggressive litigation. I felt the weight of it settle. Irrevocable meant permanent. This wasn't a warning shot or a negotiating tactic. This was a locked vault with Madison's name scratched off the door. One more thing, I said. Powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, anything that gives her decision-making authority over me? Nadia pulled another folder. Already drafted. All existing POAs are revoked effective immediately. New designations name Evelyn as primary, with a professional successor if she's unable to act. Madison and Tyler are explicitly excluded. Do they need to be notified? Not legally, but I'd recommend sending formal notice through counsel to create a paper trail. If they challenge your mental capacity later, we want evidence that you were clear-headed and deliberate. Send it, she made a note. Anything else? Bank accounts. I want Madison's access reviewed and restricted where possible. Already in motion. I've contacted your primary institutions to flag any suspicious activity or sudden changes. They'll require additional verification for large transfers and notify you of any attempts to modify account structures. Evelyn leaned forward. What about Logan's creditors? Can they come after Fred directly? Only for the guarantees he explicitly signed. I've reviewed those documents. 4 are valid and enforceable. The others have technical deficiencies or expired terms. I'm preparing a letter to each creditor clarifying which obligations Fred acknowledges and which he's disputing. Will that slow them down? It'll force them to litigate the disputed ones, which takes time and money. Meanwhile, the valid guarantees are being called. Logan will default, Creditors will pursue him directly, and his financial collapse becomes inevitable. I liked the sound of that word. Inevitable. We left Nadia's office an hour later with a file box full of executed documents and a checklist of next steps. Evans picked us up in the SUV, drove us home through midday traffic while I stared out the window and watched the city slide past. Somewhere out there, Madison was getting the first hints that her safety net had disappeared. Bank cards declining, credit lines frozen, lawyers sending ominous letters about changes to estate planning structures. She'd panic, Logan would rage, and they'd make mistakes. At home, I locked myself in the office and started going through old files, gifts I'd made, loans I'd forgiven, financial support I'd provided over the years. The list was staggering. Tens of thousands for Madison's wedding, a down payment on their first house, Logan's business capital raises that I'd backstopped with personal guarantees. I'd been generous because I could afford it and because they were family. Now I could see the pattern. Not gratitude, but expectation. Not appreciation, but entitlement. Every gift had simply raised the baseline of what they thought they deserved. Evelyn knocked and entered with coffee. "You're building a timeline." "I'm building a case. If Madison challenges the trust, I need to show the court a pattern of financial manipulation and dependency." "You think she'll sue?" "I think she'll do whatever it takes. She already tried poison." Evelyn set down the coffee and perched on the edge of the desk. "Are you okay? Emotionally?" I considered the question. Was I okay? I'd restructured my entire estate to disinherit my daughter. I'd triggered financial guarantees that would bankrupt her husband. I was systematically dismantling their lives. "I'm clear," I said. "For the first time in months, I'm clear." She nodded, accepting that. "Then we keep going." That evening, Evans called. "You asked for surveillance. I've got movement." "Where?" "Madison's been making rounds. She visited 3 different attorneys today, spent an hour at each. She's looking for someone to fight the trust." "Probably. But here's the interesting part. She's also been to a private investigator and a forensic accountant. She's building her own case." I smiled without humor. "Good. Let her spend money she doesn't have on a fight she can't win." "There's more. Logan met with someone at a parking garage downtown. Cash changed hands. Couldn't see faces, but the body language was tense. Paying off a creditor? Or hiring someone for something else?" That hit hard. "You think he'd take it as far as getting physical?" "I think he's desperate and stupid. That's a dangerous combination." "Stay close, Evans." "Already am." I hung up and found Evelyn watching the news in the living room. She muted it when I sat down. "They're not going to accept this quietly," she said. "No." "So what's the next move?" I thought about that. I'd cut off their money, restructured my estate, called their debts. But that was all defensive, protective, reactive. I needed to be proactive. "We trigger the forfeiture clause," I said. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "You have enough evidence?" "Restaurant manager's testimony, forged insurance documents, Logan's assault at our house." Nadia said clear and convincing evidence. "I have it." "That's permanent, Fred." "I know." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we do it right. Document everything. Follow procedure. Make it bulletproof." Nadia's already drafting the trigger package. She'll present it to the independent trustee next week. And then Madison's out. Completely. I felt the finality of it settle over me like a coat. There would be no reconciliation after this, no tearful reunions or forgiveness scenes. I was choosing law over love, structure over sentiment. But what choice had she left me? We sat in silence for a while, watching muted images flicker across the screen. At some point, Evelyn took my hand. We stayed like that until the house grew dark around us, and the only light came from the television's cold glow. Madison came at noon on Thursday with Tyler in tow. I watched through the window as they parked and approached together. Tactical positioning, I realized. Tyler was insurance, a reminder that I had another child who hadn't tried to eliminate me. I opened the door before they knocked. "Dad," Tyler said. He looked uncomfortable, hands jammed in his pockets, eyes darting between me and Madison. "Can we talk?" "You can." "Madison can't." Madison's face did something complicated. "Dad, please, just 5 minutes." "No. I'm your daughter." "You stopped being my daughter when you put something in my glass." Tyler flinched. "What?" Madison grabbed his arm. "He's confused. He thinks, Dad, you're not thinking clearly. Maybe we should get you checked out. Memory issues, stress." It was a good play. Reframe my clarity as confusion, my decision-making as diminished capacity. Lay groundwork for a competency challenge. I smiled. "My memory is perfect, Madison. I remember the restaurant. I remember the waiter warning me. I remember switching our glasses and watching Logan collapse." The color drained from her face. Tyler pulled his arm free. "Wait, what? Madison, what is he talking about?" "Nothing. Dad, you're imagining things. The insurance policy," I continued. "The one with my forged signature naming you as primary beneficiary. 20 million reasons to want me gone. That's insane." But her voice had lost conviction. Tyler looked at her. Really looked, like he was seeing someone new. "Madison? He's lying. Desperate now, the mask fragmenting. Tyler, he's trying to turn you against me, against us." "Are you saying he's lying about the insurance policy?" Tyler pressed. She didn't answer. Tyler took a step back, processing, his face doing the math. "Oh my God. You actually... Madison, what did you do?" "Nothing. I didn't... This is all a misunderstanding." "Get off my property," I said quietly. "Both of you." Tyler held up his hands. "Dad, I didn't know. Whatever she did, I wasn't part of it. Maybe, maybe not. But you're in her orbit, and right now that makes you a liability. That's not fair." "Fair?" The word came out harder than I intended. "You want to talk about fair? Your sister tried to eliminate me for money. Fair is off the table." I closed the door, locked it, walked away while they were still standing on the porch. Evelyn appeared from the kitchen. Tyler looked shocked. Could be real, could be performance. "You think he knew?" "I think he spent 3 years watching Madison manipulate her way through life and never said a word. That's not innocence. That's complicity through silence." She didn't argue. That afternoon, Nadia called. "The trigger package is ready. The trustee has reviewed the evidence and agreed to hold a preliminary hearing tomorrow at 2 p.m. You'll need to appear, present your case, and answer questions." "What are the chances?" "With this evidence? 90% in your favor, maybe higher. The forged insurance document alone is damning. Add the restaurant incident and Logan's assault at your home, and you have a clear pattern of attempted financial harm. Does Madison get to defend herself? The trustee will notify her of the proceeding and give her an opportunity to respond. But this isn't a trial. She doesn't get to litigate every detail. The trustee makes a determination based on the evidence presented, and that determination is final." "How long until it's done?" "If the trustee rules in your favor tomorrow, the forfeiture becomes effective immediately. Madison's interest terminates, her name is removed from all documents, and alternate beneficiaries step up. And if she challenges it? She can sue, but she won't win. The trust language is bulletproof. I designed it specifically to survive this kind of attack." I thanked her and ended the call, feeling the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow, I would sit in a conference room and methodically dismantle my daughter's claim to my estate. Evidence, testimony, documents, clinical and thorough and permanent. It felt like preparing for surgery, necessary but not easy. Evans called at 6 p.m. Logan just withdrew $8,000 in cash from an ATM. That's his daily limit. He did it at 4 different banks, 32,000 total. That was enough for a plane ticket, or a payment to someone who didn't take credit cards. Where is he now? Home, pacing. Madison's been on the phone for 3 hours straight. I've got an audio feed from the porch. She's calling attorneys, crying, begging for help. She knows about the hearing. Probably. Nadia said they'd notify her. I thought about that. Madison had 20 hours to mount a defense or make a move. Desperate people with a ticking clock made bad decisions. Stay on them, I told Evans. If they leave the house, I want to know immediately. Copy that. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept running tomorrow's hearing through my mind. What I'd say, what Nadia would present, what objections Madison's attorney might raise. But mostly, I kept circling back to the look on her face when I'd confronted her on the porch. Not remorse, not shame, just rage at being caught. Evelyn stirred beside me. You're doing it again. Doing what? Thinking like a father. You need to think like someone under attack. I thought I was. She rolled over, propped herself on one elbow. A father hopes for reconciliation. Someone under attack plans for victory. I know which one I am. Do you? Because you keep looking for signs that she's still in there, the daughter you raised. But she's not, Fred. That person is gone. Maybe she was never real to begin with. The words hurt because they were true. I'd been waiting for Madison to show remorse, to break down and apologize, to prove that somewhere under the calculation was a human being who still cared. But that moment wasn't coming. You're right, I said. Then tomorrow, you go into that hearing and you finish this. No mercy, no second guessing. You present the evidence and you let the trustee rule. And then? And then Madison learns what happens when you try to destroy someone who built an empire from nothing. I kissed her. Have I told you lately that you're terrifying? Not nearly enough. We lay in the dark for a while, her head on my chest, my hand tracing patterns on her shoulder. Outside, Evans's SUV sat in the driveway, engine idling, watchful. Tomorrow would be decisive. One way or another, this ended. The hearing took place in a conference room that smelled like filtered air and old carpet. The independent trustee was a woman named Patricia Holloway. Mid-50s, steel gray hair, eyes that missed nothing. She'd built a career on managing complicated family trusts and had a reputation for being immune to emotional manipulation. I liked her immediately. Nadia laid out the case with surgical precision. The restaurant incident, supported by the manager's written statement. The forged insurance policy, analyzed by a handwriting expert who confirmed the signature wasn't mine. Logan's assault at my home, documented by Evans's security footage. A pattern of financial dependency and escalating desperation, backed by bank records and loan documents. Patricia listened without expression, taking notes in a leather portfolio. Madison's attorney was a young woman named Grace Chen who'd clearly been hired in a panic. She objected to every piece of evidence, challenged every conclusion, and generally did her job with enthusiasm that couldn't overcome lack of preparation. The restaurant incident is hearsay, she argued. The manager didn't see what was allegedly poured, didn't test the substance, didn't preserve any evidence. It's speculation. Patricia glanced at her notes. The substance was recovered from Mr. Wright's stomach during treatment. Hospital records indicate a chemical irritant consistent with common household cleaners. Combined with Mr. Lamb's testimony that he switched glasses after being warned, the circumstantial evidence is compelling. Circumstantial isn't conclusive. In this proceeding, it doesn't have to be. The standard is clear and convincing evidence of attempted harm. That threshold is met. Grace tried another angle. The insurance policy, even if the signature is questioned, that's a matter between Mr. Lamb and the insurance company. It doesn't prove intent to harm. It proves intent to financially benefit from his passing, Patricia said dryly. In combination with the other evidence, it demonstrates motive and planning. I watched Madison across the table. She sat rigid, hands folded, face a mask of controlled distress. She'd worn conservative clothing, navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back, the costume of a dutiful daughter wrongly accused. But her eyes gave her away, not sad, not scared, calculating. She was already working the angles, looking for the crack in the structure. She wouldn't find one. Patricia reviewed her notes for a long moment, then set down her pen. "Ms. Chen, does your client wish to make a statement?" Grace leaned over to confer with Madison, whispered urgently. Madison shook her head. "No statement at this time." "Very well." Patricia closed her portfolio. "Based on the evidence presented, I find clear and convincing proof that Madison Lamb Wright attempted to financially and physically harm the grantor through deliberate actions, including but not limited to substance introduction, document forgery, and coordination with her spouse in an assault. This conduct meets the definition of bad actor behavior as defined in the trust document. Grace shot to her feet. "Mrs. Holloway, we haven't had adequate time to prepare a defense. I request a continuance." "Denied. The evidence is overwhelming and the trust language is unambiguous. My ruling is final." "We'll appeal." "You can try, but the trust document specifies that my determination is binding and survives any challenge except proof of fraud or gross negligence on my part. Good luck establishing either." Patricia turned to Nadia. "Prepare the forfeiture documentation. Madison Lamb Wright's interest in the trust is terminated effective immediately. All benefits, distributions, and succession rights are voided. Alternate beneficiaries are now primary." Madison made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Grace put a hand on her shoulder, but Madison shook it off, standing so fast her chair tipped backward. "This is insane." Her voice shook. "Dad, please, you can't do this. I'm your daughter." "You were my daughter," I said quietly. "Then you tried to eliminate me for money. Now you're nothing." That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened. And now you're going to live with the consequences." She tried for tears. They wouldn't come. Instead, her face twisted into something raw and ugly, pure rage, stripped of pretense. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "No," I said. "I won't." Patricia stood, signaling the hearing was over. "This proceeding is concluded. Ms. Chen, you'll receive formal documentation within 48 hours. Mr. Lamb, Mrs. Lamb, thank you for your time." We filed out into the corridor. Madison and Grace left immediately, Madison's heels clicking sharp staccato against the tile. I heard her voice echo back. She was already on the phone, rage crying to someone about injustice and betrayal. Evelyn took my hand. "How do you feel?" I took inventory. Relief, mostly. Satisfaction. A clean, clear sense of something decisive finally happening. "Like I just excised a tumor," I said. Nadia packed her briefcase. "Expect her to escalate. She's lost everything. People do dangerous things when they're cornered." "I know. Evans is ready." "Good." She extended her hand. "Congratulations, Fred. You protected yourself and your estate. That takes courage." I shook her hand and meant it. "Thank you for everything." We left the building into sharp afternoon sunlight. Evans pulled up in the SUV before we reached the curb, door already open. He drove us home in silence, his eyes constantly checking mirrors, alert for tail cars or unusual movement. Nothing happened. We reached home without incident. Inside, I poured whiskey and sat in the living room while Evelyn made calls. Tyler, a few close friends, people who needed to know the situation had resolved. I listened to her calm, efficient explanations and marveled at how steady she was. My phone buzzed. Tyler. "Madison just called me screaming. 'Dad, what happened?' I replied. She was formally disinherited. It's done. Forever? Forever." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "I'm sorry." I didn't know if he was apologizing for Madison's behavior or expressing sympathy for my situation. It didn't matter. Tyler had chosen his orbit years ago. He'd have to live in it. Evans knocked and entered. Logan just maxed out 2 more credit cards at an electronics store, bought 4 burner phones and a laptop. Burner phones? Yeah, that's a planning behavior. He's setting up off-grid communication. For what? Nothing good. I set down my glass. You think he's planning something? I think he's desperate, disinherited by association, and in debt to people who don't forgive. That's a volatile mix. Stay close. I'm sleeping in the guest house tonight. I've already keyed the alarm to alert my phone for any perimeter breach. After he left, Evelyn sat beside me on the couch. It's not over. No. They're going to try something. Probably. And when they do, I looked at her. When they do, we'll be ready, and we'll finish this. She nodded, satisfied. We spent the evening in careful preparation. I reviewed every entry point to the house, every lock, every camera angle. Evans had installed motion sensors on the back gate and upgraded the glass on the ground floor windows to impact-resistant polymer. The house wasn't a fortress, but it was defensible. At midnight, I stood at the bedroom window and looked out over the property. Lights from Evans's guest house glowed warm. The pool reflected moonlight. Everything looked peaceful. But I could feel it building, the pressure of something inevitable moving closer. Madison and Logan had lost everything. They had nothing left to protect, and nothing left to lose. That made them more dangerous than ever. I climbed into bed beside Evelyn, her warmth immediate and grounding. "Try to sleep," she said. "I'll try." I closed my eyes and waited for whatever came next. Evan's text woke me at 1:30 a.m. Tonight. I was out of bed before Evelyn stirred, pulling on clothes, moving on pure trained response. I texted back, "Where?" Nadia's building. 2 figures just entered the parking garage. One matches Madison's build. I called him. He picked up on the first ring. "They're going after the documents," I said. "That's my read. The trust originals and backup files are in her office safe. If they can destroy those, they think they can undo the forfeiture." "Exactly. Can they?" "Not really. Nadia keeps digital backups in 3 locations and filed copies with the court, but they're desperate enough to try." I thought fast. "Where are you?" "Parked across from the building." I followed them from their house. Logan drove, lights off, parked in a loading zone. "Call Nadia. Tell her not to come in. And call Detective Boyle. Have her ready as a witness but not for an arrest. I want documentation, not spectacle." "Copy. You coming?" "We're coming." I woke Evelyn with a hand on her shoulder. She was alert immediately, that particular gift of hers. "They're moving?" "They're at Nadia's building, going after the documents." She was dressed in 90 seconds. The drive took 14 minutes through empty streets. Evans texted coordinates, and I pulled into a parking space with a clear view of Nadia's building. 15 stories of glass and steel, dark except for security lighting in the lobby. Evans's SUV sat 2 spaces over. He climbed out when we parked, moved to our passenger door, leaned in. They entered through a service entrance on the east side. Madison had a key card, probably cloned or stolen from when she visited lawyers in this building earlier this week. Logan forced the stairwell door. They're inside. "Where's Boyle?" "2 blocks away on standby. She's off duty but agreed to come as a witness if things go sideways." "Nadia?" "Safe at home. She remoted into her security system and locked down the office suite. They can get to the corridor but not through her main door without triggering alarms." I processed that. So they're trapped between floors. Unless they give up and leave, which they should, but they won't. No. I checked my watch. 1:47 a.m. "Let's go." We moved as a unit, Evans on point, me in the middle, Evelyn behind. We entered through the main lobby where a security guard looked up from his phone, startled. Fred Lamb, I said, showing ID. My attorney is Nadia Price, 20th floor. We have reason to believe there's a break-in in progress. He reached for his radio. Evans stopped him with a gesture. Call the police if we're not back in 10 minutes. Until then, stay here and monitor cameras. The guard looked between us, decided we seemed more legitimate than threatening, and nodded. We took the elevator to 20. The doors opened onto a silent corridor, recessed lighting casting everything in pale amber. Nadia's suite was at the end, door closed, small camera housing visible above the frame, and in front of the door, arguing in harsh whispers, Madison and Logan. Logan had a pry bar. Madison held a tablet, probably trying to hack the electronic lock. Neither of them heard us approach until Evans cleared his throat. They spun. Madison's face went through surprise, fear, and fury in 3 seconds. Dad, what are you doing here? Stopping you from committing a felony. Logan raised the pry bar slightly. Not threatening, just showing he had it. We're retrieving documents that were obtained under duress. You're breaking and entering to destroy evidence of your own crimes. We didn't, Madison started, then stopped. Her shoulders dropped. Dad, please. You've taken everything. Just let us have this. Let you destroy the legal foundation of your disinheritance? Why would I do that? Because I'm your daughter. The words echoed down the corridor. Evans shifted slightly, positioning himself between Logan's pry bar and me. You were my daughter, I said, each word deliberate. Then you poured poison in my glass. Then you forged documents. Then your husband assaulted me in my home. You stopped being my daughter when you chose money over family. Logan took a step forward. Evans matched him. We're leaving with those documents, Logan said. His voice had gone flat, dangerous. No, I said. You're not. He lunged. Evans caught him mid-stride, one hand closing around Logan's wrist, twisting the pry bar away in a move so smooth it looked choreographed. The bar clattered to the floor. Logan swung wild with his free hand. Evans deflected, stepped through, and put Logan face first against the wall. Madison screamed, high, sharp, genuine panic. Enough, I said. Evans held Logan for 3 more seconds, then stepped back. Logan sagged against the wall, breathing hard. Madison was crying now. Real tears, finally, the mask completely gone. We had plans, Dad. The money was supposed to... We needed it. We deserved it. You deserved nothing you didn't earn. You were going to give it to us anyway. When you were gone, we just needed it sooner. And there it was. The admission I'd been waiting for. Not remorse, not shame, just frustration at the timing. I heard enough, said a voice from behind us. Detective Aaron Boyle stepped out of the stairwell, hands in the pockets of a leather jacket, face neutral. She'd been listening. Aaron, I said. She nodded to me, then looked at Madison and Logan. You just confessed to conspiracy to harm. That's not a civil matter anymore. Madison's face went white. No, I didn't mean... I was upset. I wasn't thinking... You meant exactly what you said. Boyle looked at me. You want to press charges? I thought about it. Criminal charges meant publicity, trials, family drama played out in courtrooms and newspapers. It meant Madison and Logan in prison, their lives completely destroyed. It was tempting, but it was also unnecessary. They'd already lost everything that mattered to them. Money, status, access to the wealth they'd been counting on. Prison would just be excessive. No charges, I said, but I want this documented. I want a statement from you as a witness that you heard the confession. I can do that. And I want them barred from coming within 500 feet of me, my wife, or any property we own. Restraining order. Easy. Madison crumpled to the floor, knees giving out, head in her hands. Logan just stared at the wall, defeated. I felt nothing looking at them. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a clean, clear sense of something finished. Evans picked up the pry bar. Building security will be here in about 3 minutes. You want to be here when they arrive? No, I said. We're done. We left them in the corridor. Madison sobbing, Logan silent and broken. Boyle stayed behind to manage the building security response. The elevator ride down was silent. In the lobby, the security guard looked relieved to see us. Everything okay? Fine, I said. There are 2 people on the 20th floor who need to be escorted out. They're not dangerous, just desperate. He nodded, already on his radio. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Evelyn took my hand as we walked to the car. How do you feel? She asked. I searched for the right word. Complete, she smiled. Good. We drove home in comfortable silence. Evans followed in the SUV. The house was exactly as we'd left it, secure, quiet, waiting. Inside, I poured whiskey for both of us. We sat in the living room without turning on lights, just the ambient glow from outside filtering through the windows. It's really over, Evelyn said. Almost. Almost? One more thing. Tomorrow. Then it's over. She didn't ask what. She just nodded and sipped her drink. I already knew what the last move would be. I'd been planning it since the hearing, holding it in reserve like a final card. Madison and Logan had lost everything, but they needed to understand, really understand, that there was no path back. Tomorrow, I'd make sure they understood. I woke early and called Nadia. I need you to deliver something for me, today, in person. What am I delivering? A package to Madison. Documents she needs to see. What kind of documents? The kind that make things final. Nadia was quiet for a moment. Fred, the trust is already triggered. The forfeiture is complete. What else is there? Leverage and closure. That sounds ominous. It's necessary. Can you do it? Of course. What's in the package? I walked her through it. Copies of the executed trust documents showing Madison's complete removal. Letters from each of the 4 lenders I'd triggered, showing guarantee calls and default notices. The restraining order Boyle had filed. A final letter from me, handwritten, explaining exactly what had happened and why. No threats, no gloating, just facts. I'll have it couriered by noon, Nadia said. No, deliver it yourself. I want her to see your face. I want her to understand that this isn't a negotiation or a tactic. It's the end. You're sure about this? Completely. She sighed. I'll call you when it's done. I spent the morning in careful preparation. The letter to Madison took 3 drafts before I got the tone right. Not angry, not vindictive, just clear. I explained the trust restructure, the forfeiture ruling, the restraining order. I listed every piece of leverage I still held. The guarantee calls that would bankrupt Logan, the insurance policy that now excluded her completely, the legal structure that made any challenge futile and expensive. Then I wrote the part that mattered. You tried to eliminate me for money. You failed. Now you will live the rest of your life knowing that the wealth you counted on, the inheritance you tried to accelerate, will never be yours. Not today, not when I'm gone, not ever. You chose money over family. Now you have neither. This is the consequence of your choices. Live with it. I didn't sign it, Dad. I just signed my name. Evelyn read it over my shoulder. That's brutal. It's true. Yes, and brutal. I sealed the letter in an envelope and added it to the package. Nadia picked it up at 11:30, professional and efficient as always. You're burning the bridge completely, she said. The bridge burned when she poured something in my glass. I'm just making sure she knows there's no swimming back across the river. She left with the package. I waited. Nadia called at 2 p.m. It's done. How did she react? Denial, then anger, then collapse. She tried to tear up the documents. I told her those were copies and destroying them changed nothing. Her attorney was there, Grace Chen. She looked over everything and told Madison it was airtight. Did Madison say anything? She asked if there was any way back, any action she could take, any amends she could make. I told her no. The trust is irrevocable, the forfeiture is permanent, and the restraining order is enforceable. And then, she broke down completely. Grace escorted her out. It was sad, actually. Good, I said. Fred, she tried to eliminate me, Nadia. She planned it, executed it, and only failed because a waiter warned me. If she's sad now, that's the consequence of her choices, not my responsibility. Silence. Then, you're right. I'm sorry. Professional distance got blurry there for a moment. It's fine. Thank you for delivering it personally. Of course. Is there anything else you need? No. We're done. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my office. The house felt different, lighter, maybe, or just emptier. A chapter had closed. A door had locked. Evelyn appeared with coffee. Nadia delivered the package? Yes. And? Madison collapsed. It's over. She set down the coffee and wrapped her arms around me from behind, chin on my shoulder. You did what you had to do. I know. Do you feel good about it? I considered that. Did I feel good? Not exactly, but I felt clear, decisive, protected. I'd removed a threat, defended myself, and established consequences for betrayal. I feel like I won, I said. You did win. That evening, Evans stopped by to deliver his final report. Logan's creditors had initiated collection proceedings. The house was already in pre-foreclosure. Madison's car had been repossessed. Their social circle had quietly distanced, the kind of fade that happens when money disappears and scandal looms. They're done, Evans said. Financially, socially, legally. Whatever they had is gone. Good. You want me to keep monitoring? No, we're finished with them. He nodded, satisfied. Then my work here is complete. You need anything else, you call. Thank you, Evans, for everything. You paid me well, and you were always straight with me. That's all I need. He shook my hand and left. Evelyn and I spent the evening on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and purples. The air was cool, comfortable, the kind of evening that felt like reward. Tyler called earlier, Evelyn said, while you were with Evans. What did he want? To apologize, to explain that he didn't know what Madison was planning, to ask if there was any way to repair things. What did you tell him? That you'd need time, that trust is earned, not given, that he'd have to prove himself. Do you think he will? I don't know, but he's young. He has a chance to choose differently than Madison did. I thought about that. Tyler had been complicit through silence and proximity, but he hadn't actively participated in the poisoning. Maybe there was a path forward for him. Maybe not. Time would tell. Let's see what he does, I said. She agreed. We sat in silence until the sky turned dark and the stars came out, sharp and clear. Inside, the house waited, secure, quiet, ours. No threats, no shadows, no children plotting against their parents. I'd sold my business for $60 million and decided to celebrate. That celebration had ended with poison, betrayal, and the complete dismantling of my daughter's life. But I'd survived. I'd protected myself and my wife. I'd defended what was mine. And tomorrow, I'd wake up with the sun and start living again. Because in the end, I'd won. They came at midnight on Friday. I'd been expecting it. That final, desperate play, the last surge of people with nothing left to lose. Evans had texted 2 hours earlier. Logan bought a plane ticket to Mexico, leaves Sunday. He's running. Which meant tonight was his last chance to try something stupid. I sat in the dark living room, lights off, curtains partially drawn. Evelyn was upstairs, safe in the bedroom with the door locked. Evans was in the SUV at the end of the driveway, watching. We'd turned this into a trap without bait, just patience and preparation. The motion sensors tripped at 11:53. My phone lit up with alerts. Back gate breached, west perimeter camera triggered, shapes moving through the yard. I texted Evans, "They're here." His reply was instant. 2 targets, Logan and Madison, armed with what looks like pry bar and bolt cutters. No firearms visible. I stood, moved to the window, watched them cross the lawn in the darkness. They moved like amateurs, fast but loud, Madison stumbling over landscaping, Logan hissing instructions. They reached the back door and started working on the lock. I gave them 30 seconds, then flipped the exterior lights. The backyard blazed white bright, catching them like specimens under glass. Madison shielded her eyes. Logan froze with bolt cutters raised. I opened the back door. "That's far enough," I said. Logan let the cutters fall and rushed at me. No pause, no warning, just a sudden, frantic attack. He crossed the space in an instant, hands reaching for my neck. I was ready. I'd spent 3 afternoons with Evans learning exactly this scenario, how to defend against an aggressive charge, how to redirect momentum, how to finish it cleanly. Theory became practice in one fluid motion. I stepped left, caught Logan's wrist, used his own momentum to turn him sideways. My other hand found his shoulder. I drove forward and down, all my weight behind the movement, and Logan's trajectory changed from charge to collision. He hit the doorframe chest first with a sound like a gunshot. All the air left his lungs. He dropped to his knees, gasping, hands pressed to his ribs. Not broken, I'd been careful about force, but definitely bruised and possibly cracked. Madison screamed. Evans appeared from the side yard, flashlight in one hand, phone in the other. "Police are en route. 2 minutes out." "No!" Madison's voice was raw. "No, please, we'll leave. We'll go. Just don't—" "Too late," I said. Logan tried to stand and failed. He stayed on his knees, breathing shallow, face twisted in pain. I looked at Madison, really looked at her for the first time in weeks. Her face was hollowed out, makeup gone, clothes rumpled. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days, someone who'd lost everything and was watching the last pieces slip away. I felt nothing. "You came to my home," I said quietly. "After everything. After the forfeiture. After the restraining order. After I made it crystal clear you had nothing left here. You still came. We needed to talk to you. You needed money, or documents, or something you could leverage. But there's nothing left, Madison. I took it all." She crumpled. Not performance this time. Real collapse. She sat on the grass and sobbed, the kind of crying that came from somewhere deep and broken. Logan finally found his voice. "You destroyed us." "No," I said. "You destroyed yourselves. I just refused to be your victim." Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Evans stepped forward. "Fred, you want to let them leave before the cops arrive? Last chance to keep this private." I thought about it. One word and they'd disappear into the night, flee to Mexico or wherever desperate people went when the walls closed in. No arrest, no spectacle, no final public humiliation. But they'd broken into my home. They'd violated the restraining order. They'd tried one last time to take something that wasn't theirs. "No," I said. "Let them stay." The police arrived in 3 minutes. 2 units, lights flashing, officers professional and efficient. They took statements, photographed evidence, verified the restraining order violation. Logan and Madison were handcuffed and placed in separate squad cars. Madison looked at me through the window as they pulled away. Her face was blank now, empty. She'd finally realized there was no path back, no negotiation, no play left to make. I'd taken everything and she'd have to live with that. The police finished their work by 1 a.m. Evans walked the perimeter one final time, confirmed all sensors were active and all locks were secure. "That's it," he said. "They're done. They've got nothing left." "I know." He studied me for a moment. "You okay?" "Better than okay." He smiled, small, satisfied. "Then my work here is finished. Again." "Thank you, Evans." "Anytime." I took inventory. No guilt, no regret, No lingering doubt about whether I'd been too harsh or too cold or too final. Just satisfaction. Clean and complete. I'd won.